Methamphetamine is the hidden drug. Fentanyl gets the headlines, but the drug that today is crushing people nationwide is meth, coming in unprecedented quantities and purity from Mexico. One of the hardest things to do in the illegal drug world is get sober from meth. I spoke to a fellow named Jorge from Florida who'd done just that. Jorge came from a good family. He was the only one in his family to get addicted, go to prison, relapse. His drugs for many years were crack and alcohol, and they ruled his life. Then about 8 years ago, he began using meth, and that sent him spiraling down further than crack or alcohol ever had.
I dabbled with it because of the intense high. I stayed up a lot longer. It didn't seem like it was that bad, and it was extremely cheap and super easy to find. You know, I ended up being homeless for the first time ever, and kind of just roaming. And I stumbled into that circle. I really liked it. And it was cheap. You know, I come from a circle where alcohol and crack cocaine, you know, I was making a lot of money. I was able to spend a lot of money. My family was suffering. My financials were suffering, but I had financials. Whereas once I hit homelessness and stuff like that, and I started doing meth, it was just so available and so cheap, and the high lasted or seemed like it was a better high. I was homeless, but I would go from drug house to drug house. Like, I might be at a drug house for a day. I might be at this one for 2 days. I might be in the woods. You don't really sleep much. You're awake for 10, 11, 12, 13 days at a time sometimes. Like, literally awake. And then when you do finally, your body gives out. You know, I've passed out behind bushes or behind businesses in the woods. So yeah, I was homeless. Yeah, I preferred to hang out in the woods. And when you're on the drugs, it never really seems that bad. It never really seems like it's, you know, you're so out of your mind that it's actually, I guess for the moment, it's exciting. You know, you have no responsibilities. You have nothing. You know, you'll start hearing things. You'll start seeing things. You'll start believing things that aren't really true. I know for me, you know, those last couple years that I was on methamphetamine were the worst because morally, yes, I was deficient throughout my drug use and my alcoholism and everything like that, right? But I wasn't as morally deficient and valueless as I was when I got on methamphetamine. You know, how aggressive and violent I could become for just about anything or anyone. You know, I was raised right. My dad always raised me, you know, you don't put your hands on women. I mean, one of my most toxic relationships was during one of my biggest, longest meth binges. And I ended up giving up on that value, you know, and the relationship just was so toxic, you know. She would put her hands on me. I would put my hands on her. The amount of violence and aggression and hatred that drug brought out, and the morals and values, as little as there were throughout my crack addiction and my alcoholism, I gave it all up. I gave everything up, you know. And there was no shame. There was no guilt. There was no nothing. You become like a shell. The judge tried to give me treatment one time, and I said, what are my other options? And the public defender was like, well, you could either do probation and go to a treatment facility, which she feels you need, and my family wanted me to do, or you can do 11 more days and you have time served. So I took the 11 days, and I thought my family would be happy, and they weren't. And now I understand why. You know, as much as they love me, the safest place I ever been up until now was jail.
But then, after 2 years using methamphetamine, he was arrested again on July 7th of 2020. 17 felonies this time. The promise of many years in prison. And this time, to Jorge, it felt different.
For me, the jail was always like a welcome home party. Like I knew everybody knew me. We're hanging out, blah blah blah, reminiscing, talking about what we were doing, where we were hanging out. You know, all the stupid stuff that people glorify and talk about when they go to jail. But this time, I just didn't see no sense in it. You know, I knew something was different. And if I would have got out of jail in the first year that I was in jail, I probably would have went back exactly to what I was doing, to be honest. Because I did 18 months in jail when they finally allowed my plea for a treatment center, because I was looking at like 30 or 40 years when I first went in there. But luckily, you know, the grace of God and just, you know, circumstances, I ended up looking at like 6 or 7. But the judge was okay with me going to a treatment center for long term, which is 12 to 18 months. And even when I got there, I wanted to run. Like the first couple of weeks, I was like, I want to leave. I don't want to be here. Well, I never knew I had mental health issues. Luckily, I went to a dual diagnosis and behavioral modification program, and they got me on some meds. And between the meds and not leaving and being there longer, like every day you're there, it gets easier to be there, right? And I burnt all my bridges. I didn't have anybody to reach out to. And luckily, I was so far from home, and there was no family trying to help me. There was nothing. I had nothing. Like I had nothing. When I got out of jail, I weighed 240 pounds. When I went to jail, I weighed 130. So when I walked into this program, I had basketball shorts and no shirt. And it was so humiliating, you know. I'm 240 pounds and here I am wearing shorts like I'm fixing to walk the streets and stuff, you know. But they had this thing called grandma's closet, and I had clothes. And then you walk the hallway. The program has like 147 guys at any given time. And you walk with a bag, and everybody donates and helps you with hygiene and socks, different things that they have extra, because some guys have a lot, you know. I don't know what exactly clicked. I don't know. I just know that something was different. But if I would have got out of that jail, and people tried to bond me out. My bond finally got reinstated. It was super high. But I've had people trying to, you know, put properties up and, you know, finagle some money, and they almost got me out twice. And thank God they didn't, because I would have probably ended up with a life sentence or dead. Man, I'm so blessed for the place that I went to, right? But if you don't want it, you're not going to get it. And it's so hard to get. So the program I went to, one, it's state mandated. So I'm sentenced to go there. So it's a DOC program, right? And man, I love the one that I went to. And for a lot of these people, it's just a nice jail sentence. Some people make careers out of going to these programs. It's a better bed, better food. They can smoke cigarettes. They can see their family, right? For me, like I got so much out of it, and it was a process. But you got to look for it, and you got to want it, right? If people are sentenced to short term, they're not necessarily allowed to hold them back when they feel that that person needs more time. Luckily, in my case, I got to the point where I didn't mind staying there. Again, I had a really good counselor who wouldn't let me do what I wanted to do. You know, when I got there, I wanted to work in the kitchen. I wanted to do this, do that. I wanted to do anything to occupy my time and distract me from doing what I needed to do, which was figure out what was wrong with George, or who George was, who Jorge was. And he wouldn't let me do that, you know. And then I met a wonderful woman, right? I'm not going to mention her name or anything like that, but like she wasn't going to appeal to my request. I kept knocking, and I kept asking, and I wanted to figure out what was wrong. I wanted to figure out, why do I keep doing what I'm doing? Why is it that I don't want to, but I still do it? I started reading the Bible, even though I'm not real big on religion, but one of my favorite chapters is Romans 8, and it talks about sinful desires of you know, the flesh and stuff, you know. And it said it there too, you know, why is it that I want to be good, but I do evil, or I do bad?
After 18 months in jail, then 18 months at a treatment facility far from home, he returned to the town where he had lived. The drug scene he knew, the people, the dealers, were all gone. New people were in their place, but he knew no one.
On the streets, things happen in cycles, right? Like there's a select few that still, right? But like all the guys I knew that were selling dope, right? Not one that I can think of is free right now. You know, drug houses get busted, people move, people go to prison, people die, people get lost. There's still a few that I see when I drive down the road and stuff, and they're still out there, but the majority of the foundation of what I was doing, yeah, it's like it turns, or it flips.
To Jorge, this was one of the benefits of being away for a long time. The time away from meth and the street helped deepen his desire for sobriety, and he lost touch with every drug connection he'd once had.
I had so much time away from all of it, and I did so much work. I did a lot of work. They tell you act as if and fake it until you make it. You start acting a certain way and doing what these people want you to do, and the one guy, he said, you guys are way too fresh to understand what a higher power and giving your will to a higher power consists of or what it takes. But for today, just give it to the program, the name of the program, he said, right? And I was like, man, that's pretty simple, right? Because when I drive, I crash, or the car gets impounded, it catches fire, I flip it 3 times, maybe 4, right? When I drive, when I get behind the wheel, and I think that I know best, and my best thinking got me where I'm at. So I just let them do what they do, and I started taking advice from people. Not all the advice, but most of it. Make your bed, don't touch it, follow the rules.
I was interested to hear that. Like Jorge, so many recovering addicts I've interviewed have emphasized the small habits and attitudes that must become ingrained, like making your bed.
So habits and behaviors. I wasn't really responsible. I didn't see the importance of having, if about caring about doing stuff like that. But life is so much easier when you do, even in there. Really, you're practicing for the real world. In there, you get a write-up, or you get brought up on your awareness, or you got to write an essay, but you get out in the real world and you don't do these, the little things, these little things, man. Common courtesy, respect others. There was a situation where the staff showed that they believed in me. They trusted what I said because it was based on my behavior. It was based on my consistency, and that meant the world to me, right? That meant the world to me. Little things like that, responsibilities that I had, the fact that I could build a new reputation. I could be a new person, I could be different. They teach you to start investing in yourself. And some of the simplest things that you can invest in yourselves are morals and values and stuff like that, right? The simple things. And you got to start accumulating things that can't be taken or bought, right? I started investing in myself, just bettering myself, learning about myself. I did a lot of work with that woman that ended up going out of her way to work with me, right? She was an asset. This woman was God sent. I wouldn't be as well off and as healed from my past or aware of who I am today and my future and where I want to be if it wasn't for her.
It's now been 3 years since Jorge left treatment. His life is now distanced from the substances that ruled him for so long.
I work for a really good company, and I'm a foreman there. That's my primary job, 5 days a week. And then on the weekends, I'm a bilingual trucking instructor. So I work Saturdays and Sundays as well. I take 1 weekend off every 2 to 3 weeks. I help my mom. My dad passed away. I help my mom. I do a lot for her, or as much as I can to help her. That's pretty much that's about how my day goes. I don't do a lot of meetings, but when I first got into it, and when I first got back in the county that I'm living in now, I was doing probably 4 or 5 meetings, and I was doing a lot of service work and stuff. But as my life started filling up with things, a relationship, my children, my mother, employment, that's my circle though. Like, even though I don't go to meetings, the bonds that I built with these people, it's like I'm at a meeting throughout my day, because that's the the majority of the people I associate with are living a better life. I don't mind having conversations with people that I recognize. I don't mind talking, real quick and letting them know where I'm at and how good I'm doing and that they can do it too and stuff like that. But ultimately, I keep it moving. I don't have time to hang out too long, because then I'll end up hanging out for way too long. I don't know where the trap houses are. I don't know who's out there selling it. I don't know any of it. And I don't really care to know. I have no interest in I know it's bad though. I know it's still bad, because I see it. I see the results of it, right? I see the results of people coming in and out, or people falling off, people disappearing. They're doing good, then they're not doing good, they're struggling. I see that, right? I see the part of it that I've never seen before. I'm on the side of it that I've never experienced until now. But I don't know where it's at. I don't know how much it's going for. I don't know who has it, where it's coming from. I don't know any of it. And I don't really care to know, and that's a blessing today. That's a blessing.
That was a conversation with Jorge from Florida about how he moved beyond a crippling addiction to methamphetamine. If you found this podcast worthwhile, please share it as much as you can, and subscribe to my Dreamland newsletter at samquinones.substack.com.